And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, September 18th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the $ icon in the chat. This will help create a super chat for you. Any thoughts or comments that you may have that you want to see on the live broadcast that I will acknowledge. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss on the show today. So we're going to start it off by talking about the Dolphins placing Tua on injured reserve, and I'll talk about the impact of that and just more on that situation. Then I'll get into some more recaps. We'll talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win over the Lions, one of my favorite games of the weekend. We'll get into talking about the Jaguars dropping another game, this time to the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns pick up their first win of the season. So we'll talk about that. And then a couple of other things as well. We'll get into Marvin Harrison Jr.'s performance against the Rams after having a quiet debut against the Bills in Week 1. And I'll talk about the problems that the Rams have right now. And then we'll get into, in the final part of the show, we'll get into talking about all the 0-2 teams, what teams are still in it, I believe that are still in it, and what teams are kind of just, time to look to next year. Well, I shouldn't say that, but for other 0-2 teams, it might be a wrap at this point in the season, which is crazy to say because it's only week 2. But you know how once we get to week 2 and you see a lot of 0-2 teams, you start looking at the playoff odds, and for teams that start off 0-2, usually your odds are not great. So we'll get into all that in the final part of the show. But let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Dolphins placing Tua on injured reserve. So, I don't think anybody's really shocked by this. This is something that, one of the outcomes that was expected. I definitely didn't see a scenario in which he was going to play against Seattle this week. But this was the right move. Tua should take as much time off as he possibly can to get right. Now, I know there was all those conversations on, should he retire? There's a lot of money on the table. And look, I'm in the camp of I think he should retire. But at the same time, it's ultimately up to him. And unless a doctor tells him he shouldn't play, he's going to play. And he wants to play. So he's not going to retire. But, for me, you just worry about the person. And I think that's where most people are at, is you look at the injury history, the concussion history, and you say he probably should walk away. But he's not going to. So the next best course is, take as much time off as possible, heal up, and then when he's eventually able to come back, then he comes back. But my question now, just thinking about this, is if the Dolphins are out of it, do you risk another injury by having him come back and just finishing out the year, even if the Dolphins have no chance of making the playoffs? I feel like it's a no-brainer answer, because you could easily say, no, why would he play in meaningless games? I'd probably lean towards that answer too. And he probably just takes the rest of the year off. Or maybe he's like, well, I'm healthy. I want to play. I want to at least finish out this season. So that could be a conversation that's had later on when he's getting closer to come back. Because, when you look at the Dolphins, now you got Skylar Thompson starting at quarterback, and they did bring in Tyler Huntley, the former Pro Bowl quarterback, who spent some time was with the Ravens, then spent some time with the Browns this offseason and in the preseason, but was let go, and then the Dolphins picked him up. I thought the Ravens picked him up again, but needless to say, he's on the Dolphins. So maybe we'll see him starting at some point down the line. Luis in the chat says, clean house. You might not be the only, I shouldn't say might, not the only Dolphins fan that's probably thinking that. But the Dolphins are still going to try to compete. And, I think they're still going to win some games. But in this loaded AFC, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because they got Seattle this week, who's 2-0. They got to go to Seattle. So they got to travel across country to the West Coast. And that is going to be a tough game. And you got a backup quarterback. Now, Skylar Thompson knows the system. I know he just got thrown in there last week against the Bills. But, we'll see what happens. Then they got Tennessee at home, which I think is a very winnable game. At the Patriots is going to be tough, division rival. Then you got a bye week. Then you come back, you take on the Colts. You take on the Cardinals at home. You're at the Bills week 9, at the Rams, home against the Raiders. Week 12, home against the Patriots, at the Packers on Thanksgiving. So I'm assuming Tua would be back by then. Or before then. Yeah, towards the end of the year, the Dolphins have a rough schedule. At Packers week 13, home against the Jets, at the Texans, home against the Niners, at the Browns, and then at the Jets. Yeah, that's a tough way to end out the season. It's a tough way to end out the season. But right now they're 1-1. So, we'll see what happens. Look, they still got a ton of playmakers on this team. And I think they still will piece together some wins. But, yeah, this makes the road to the playoffs a lot tougher for them, and especially in this conference. So, I guess they're just going to have to try to tread water until Tua comes back. Like I said, I think this is a good enough team where they could tread water, and Tua comes back and, maybe they're 3-5 or something. Because I don't think they're going to lose every single game without Tua. I think they're going to find a way to win some games. But it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. But this was the right call for the Dolphins to, I don't think they had any other choice. But I would have been shocked if Tua was playing next week. Or this week. But that was never going to happen. So, hope he recovers fast and he comes back and, he's ready to go and he's healthy. So, but yeah, it's a really tough decision because, everybody's talking about it. You train your whole life for this and, he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. He gets that big contract extension. You're really living the dream, but you keep having these concussions, and it ultimately could be too much. And when is it going to be too much? Because now this is his 4th concussion in 3 years. Last year, didn't have any. So, I think we were all thinking, all right, we're moving past this. No. It happened again last Thursday. So, just got to hope for the best, but he is not walking away. And you know what? Again, unless it's a doctor, it's ultimately his decision. And he wants to continue to play. So, that's really what it comes down to. So, just got to hope for the best. But, yeah, at least, he's going to have some time off to get healthy. And then when he's ready to go, we'll probably see him again. I don't think the Dolphins are going to be completely out of it when he comes back, but if they are, completely out of it, then for me, I would say, yeah, I would let him sit out the rest of the year because there's no point of bringing him back and playing him in meaningless games. But that's not my decision. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about the Dolphins going forward. Do you think they'll be able to tread water while Tua is out? Again, they got so many playmakers on this team. They're going to definitely rely a lot on the running game. Devon Achane had a big game last week. Raheem Mostert, hopefully you get him back. So, that running game is very good. And then, of course, you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You just got to get the ball in their hands, and they can make a lot of things happen. So, and the defense, although James Cook, it looked good in week 1, but you see how the Jaguars offense has looked the last 2 weeks, and you think, and then you see what James Cook did to them last week. Yeah, I don't really know I don't know what to expect from the Dolphins defense. We'll see how they do on Sunday in Seattle against a team that's 2-0, and they got playmakers all over the place. So, we'll have to wait and see, but I think they could manage a little bit without Tua and stay afloat until he's healthy and he can come back. So, let me know what you guys think, though, about this situation here. So, we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will discuss another game from the weekend. We'll talk about the Lions-Buccaneers game. The Buccaneers avenging their playoff loss from last year, winning 20-16. So we will get into that when we come back from our first break of the show. And we still got some other games that I wanted to go over. Some I will actually, cover tomorrow, as we're already, halfway through the week. Tomorrow is the first game of Week 3 between the Jets and the Patriots. So we're going to have a preview for that. But so when we come back, we'll preview another game from recap another game from Week 2, the Buccaneers and the Lions game. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.